Florida State's National Signing Day goes a lot better than expected.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into a late night National Signing Day live show here at Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football writer and recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, as new customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm going to dive into the chat here in just a little bit. Please bring your comments, your questions, your thoughts. Florida State has signed 18 guys. I'm going to go through some of them, some of the positives that I am shocked by. They signed way more players and way more good players than I thought they would today, and they're still in it for some other guys. I'm not really going to break that down too much tonight, but Florida State exceeded by any measurement the expectations, whether you're a Noah fan, Gator fan, or anybody else. They did really well under the circumstance. You just won 2 games. You're in the middle of a coaching search for coordinators, and you get them, but they're not really able to recruit for more than a couple of days. This is an extraordinarily unique situation. Hats off to everybody at Florida State for making it happen. They have 18 signees, and again, they could have 1 or 2 more. Maybe there's more than that. And there's always the signing day in the first part of February too. So here is the list that I just want to go over a couple of things, and I'm just going to name all the players too. But a few of the things that I'm happy about. Again, number one is effort. I thought they were going to sign somewhere between 12 and 14 players. They got 18. 2, the impact guys like Kevin Wynn. I've talked about him numerous times. They signed him. That is a future NFL defensive tackle. Especially if you're going to run a 3-man defensive line, which Florida State will, you've got to have players like this. Getting Kevin Wynn is a huge deal. They flipped Gelsey from Florida, Arnaud from Auburn, and Chroma from Georgia. Those are all national recruits. In some way, shape, or form, you got to be saying to yourself, how did we do that? Like, I know Florida State has confidence in what they're doing and Norvell, and that's fine. But especially Chroma, like, you don't flip kids from Georgia when you're a 2-win team. That's amazing. This class, I mean, not completely, but it reduces some of the portal concern. They're still going to need to hit the portal hard, but not as much. That's a really nice bonus. A player that's not getting enough run is Chase Lofton, the tight end out of Nebraska. I didn't think they'd get him necessarily. They signed him as well. Kevin Sperry, the quarterback, buddies with him. Maybe that helped. Lofton is another flex tight end, kind of like Amari. Really athletic kid that's a nightmare on the outside. Needs to get stronger, but that's a really good player. I was really happy to see him. And here is the coolest part, because I didn't know much about these guys prior, so I just went and watched the film. Tylen Coleman, the defensive tackle, and Jordan Scott, the wide receiver. Tylen Coleman, I watched a bunch of his film. That is the steal of the class. Again, kind of like with Kevin Wynn, you are not going to get many great players coming off a 2-win season. Totally get it. Well, Florida State said the heck with that. This is a kid that's a junior college player. I assume he's got 2 years to play, but whatever. He's going to come in and play. Regardless of who comes back or what, he's going to play. He can play 0 tech or 1 tech, very aggressive, hustles like crazy, has a bulldog mentality, runs down plays from behind, and straight up, he'll put his hands into somebody, move him out of the way, and go get the running back or quarterback. He has grown man strength. 280-something. I guess he's 6'2", 6'3", just by watching the film. He's a horse. And then you got George Scott is a very unique kid. I don't want to compare him to too many people, but he's 6'6", 6'7", so he's going to bring up the obvious comparison to a recent Florida State receiver who is now in the National Football League, but he can catch it in a crowd. He's got pretty good speed. As expected, he has a lot of length. He's kind of built like a wing forward in basketball or a big 2 guard. Very athletic kid. You get those 2 kids out of the junior college ranks, you're doing pretty well. overall, just talking about the class in general, and I can share this here on my screen since I'm thinking about it. I might as well just go ahead and do that for those of you on YouTube. But looking at the class as a whole, I was surprised again that they got 18, and that's fine and dandy. But what I was even more surprised about, looking at this class, you go through it and you just say to yourself, doing the eye test, and I've seen all these kids play in some capacity. How many of these guys can really play at Florida State in their first couple of years? I think 7 or 8 of them can. We'll just kind of go through the list here. Kevin Wynn, arguably the best defensive tackle in the country out of Greene County in Georgia. He will be instant impact. Chroma, the running back out of Leesburg, Georgia, plays at Lee County. Very, very good football player. I know Florida State doesn't need as much help at running back, but he is going to play in some capacity. Great hands, breaks a lot of tackles, really good football player. Gregory Zay Thomas, we call him Zay, corner out of Fort Lauderdale, and he plays at American Heritage. Very instinctive kid, and despite his height, yes, he can play corner. Mario Nash, I think he's a future left tackle. They kept him. They didn't lose him to one of the other SEC schools. He's a Mississippi kid, really respectful young man that's actually been on the Locked On Seminoles podcast before. Keeping him was huge. He only got 2 linemen. He is huge. Getting a future left tackle, by the way, in particular. One of the bigger surprises, Javon Boggs. They got him. He's a kid that's been committed to a couple of different schools, Missouri and UCF. I know Norvell was on the phone with him on Sunday night. That went pretty well, obviously, because he just signed. He's been to Florida State before, but nobody thought they were going to get him. And then at the 11th hour, again, it's surprising, but you're getting one of the guys that I thought was tremendous at the Under Armour event earlier this year. Chase Lofton, talked about him a little bit ago. He's kind of like a big receiver, 215, 220, somewhere in that vicinity. He's from the greater Omaha, Nebraska area, plays at a very good high school. He can be used as a flex tight end. Nebraska, Missouri, and several other schools would have loved to have signed him. Tayshawn Gelsey, you flip him from Florida. That's a young man out of Jacksonville. Florida State, my entire life, have battled for Jacksonville kids. They get Gelsey over UF, nice pickup. They got the Desir twins out of Norland High School, the edge rushers. They'd committed a week or so ago. 2 kids with a lot of upside. Always nice to see Miami Public League kids headed to Florida State. Ethan Pritchard, a kid I've known since he was a freshman, played safety, then moved into a linebacker role for Seminole High School. Really physical, plays fast, doesn't care which spot he's in, just wants to play. He embodies what it is to be a Florida State defensive player. Shamar Arnaud, committed to SC, flipped to Auburn, flipped to FSU today. Really long corner, 6'2". He's like, I'm looking at the 24/7 profile. He's up to almost 190 pounds now, and he plays at Carrollton, one of the best programs in Georgia. He has a chance to be a really good corner. He could play free safety too if you wanted him to, but he's very, very fluid. That's a good football player. Florida State's fortunate to have him. Just mentioned Tywin Coleman, defensive lineman out of Northwest Mississippi Community College. He's a fire plug. He's going to play. I guarantee you he's going to have some minutes. Good football player. Kevin Sperry, quarterback out of Denton Geyer. Geyer is one of the best programs in the country. That school has football facilities like you would see at a college, and I'm not exaggerating, and it's important there. He's going to have an easier time transitioning to college than a lot of other guys. Athletic player. He's been a part of state championship teams, and I think he's a kid with a world of upside. Just has to work on technique. Tariq Mallory, they flipped this kid from West Virginia, 6'5", 180 pounds. He's out of Cheshire Academy. It's a private school in the state of Connecticut. That's a really good athlete, but his film showed him playing against a bunch of kids that couldn't guard him. Curious to see what he does when he comes to Florida State. High upside. Max Redmond, probably going to be a box safety or a guy that plays the nickel. Safety, he could play some corner in some types of defense, but Florida State plays man. Probably not the best spot for him, but he's a really good player. He played at Cardinal Newman in South Florida. It's somebody Norvell likes, thinks he's a good fit for the program too. Jordan Scott talked about him a second ago, 6'6", 6'7", wide receiver out of Southwest Mississippi Community College. Rare frame. Length, size, that's something that they obviously like a lot at Florida State, and Norvell has done very well with it. Sean, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, Porrette, offensive lineman from Riverwood in Atlanta. They flipped him from USF. That's a young man that's got a lot of upside in terms of athleticism. Needs to add weight, 270, 280 range. Just needs to get bigger than, again, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but Bruno Roos, a kicker out of Venice, Florida State gets their kicker of the future. When I come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the expectations for Florida State and what they were. And then we're going to jump into the chat. It's been a good day for Florida State. We're going to be right back after this. Have you downloaded the Better Together app yet? This is something that is pretty cool because it's a new way to do daily fantasy sports. You can download the app from either the App Store or you can get it from other places as well. All you have to do is go in and check it out on your phone. You can find it pretty easy. So, have you ever been in a situation where you're playing daily fantasy? You can have some fun with it, but it's more fun if you play with friends. So, hate the team you drafted in fantasy season? Want to play a little bit more fun? Get your friends in together. Introducing Better Together, the first cooperative daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs, talent, and you can play with your friends and not against them. Pick more or less on real-time player stats, strategize with your partner to boost your odds, and climb the leaderboard together. So here's something else to think about. It's a way to stay connected with friends and not just texting and stuff. You have something invested with it. Download Better Together now from the App Store. Sign up using code LOCKEDON for a free $10 entry into any NCAA football or NFL contest. Play with the Locked On CFB Saturday Games contest this Saturday. Remember the code LOCKEDON because winning alone is fun, but winning better together is more fun. All right, Florida State exceeded expectations as I went through. Is there anything before I jump into the chat here that they didn't do? There's only one thing that I really want to go over definitively, and it's just the obvious. Just stating it here, I'm sure most people know. They signed 2 offensive linemen. They needed minimum 4, probably 5. So they came up at least 2, if not 3 short, depending on how you want to grade it. That's the obvious. 2 other things. They didn't get a quote-unquote impact pass rusher out of the high school ranks. Not in my opinion. A guy that's going to come in and be in the 2 deep, but they still are after with Jesse Harold. To my knowledge, he's not signed yet. We'll see what happens with that. I don't have a lot of info on him yet, but tomorrow I'll talk about the kids that are still out there for Florida State, and there's Bryce Baker, like Penn State and LSU. There's some good players still out there. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I also would have liked one more DB. One more. You could never have enough DBs in today's world. Florida State or anybody else, they need them because you got to rotate guys with all these teams running spread. Clemson, Miami, now Georgia Tech, they're not much fun to play. Virginia Tech's got a mobile quarterback throwing it around. Syracuse. The ACC is going to be a very difficult league to play defense. I think that Florida State would have done better to get another DB. Maybe they still will, but again, those are my thoughts. All right, I'm going to jump in the chat just for a sec. If anybody has questions, fire away. More than happy. Which players did you like? I'm curious what comments you have about which guys are doing well, in your opinion, for this team, say year 1, year 2, and maybe some long-term projections. If there's anybody in the class you don't like, again, fire away. Let's see what we got here. Vashon, am I crazy, or is this class doesn't seem as bad? I'm happy for what we got. I think Vashon is right. Again, I thought 12, maybe 14 guys would sign. They're already at 18 at Florida State. Already 18. And the Noles have possibly a couple more. I mean, and this stuff could change, that could sign in this class. I would take that every time. If you'd have told me that 12 hours ago at the beginning of the day, I'd have said cocaine's a hell of a drug, just like Rick James said way back in the day. That doesn't mean you should use it. But no, this is above average by a mile. To be honest, for the circumstance now, it's still Florida State, this is about as good as you could have expected. They lost Solomon Thomas, and that sucks. He signed with LSU, but nobody expected to get him. So with that being stated, you got to give them some credit for doing what they did. Let's see. Robert, 2-10, and you get the coordinators in a class like that. Not too many schools can do that. FSU is still FSU. I wonder if that's a really good point. How much of this is based on Florida State's ability to use the name on the shirt? Clout matters. Cachet matters. History matters. I think they probably did. Like Tayshaun Gills, they could have went to Florida. They were the hottest team in the country in recruiting. Signs with Florida State. Or no. He's a kid that offers all over the country. Committed to Auburn, and they got tons of NIL money. He was committed originally at USC, tons of NIL money. He goes to Florida State. Those are just a couple of the examples. And then Chroma, he's one of the best all-around running backs in the country. He was committed to Georgia. I think this is a really worthwhile question, so I'll read it again. Robert Arena says, 2-10, and you get the coordinators in a class like that. Not too many schools can do that. Florida State is still Florida State. That's a pretty good point. Show enough DJ. I am surprised the guys we were able to get this year. The way this season played out, I was expecting the worst. You sound like me. I don't think there's any doubt that you should have been expecting the worst. Why? Why would you expect anything that is going to give you hope after 2-10? I'm going to say it again. Props to the staff for getting it done. And that includes the recruiting office, all the student intern, everybody. To make this happen in such short order while you're going through an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and an O-line coaching change, tremendous. It really, really is. Let's see. Hypnotic Anonymous. Tywan Lee, LeJesse Harold, Josh Petty. Josh Petty is going to Tech. Tywan Lee, I think, is going to assign later this week. Same with Jesse Harold. So your two pass rushers haven't decided yet. I don't even know what times they are. It's either Thursday or Friday for both. Petty's going to Georgia Tech. Really good football player, but that would have been a great prospect for Florida State. Let's see what else we got here. Sam, for how sad this season was, Florida State put together a respectable class. 100%. Now, here's the question. Can they add to it? And again, for those of you who don't know, just going to throw this out there. The portal is going to open officially. I know people are announcing already on the 9th. So we're only like next Monday is when it's open. And if you alleviate some of your problems here and get a couple more kids, you don't have to spend as much money in the portal. That is very important. Sam, I know you also do Auburn. What do you think of their class this year? Auburn's class is pretty good. They spent $1 gazillion. Wasn't quite as good as it probably should have. They lost a few kids and didn't get the offered kid. But Auburn's NIL is insane. They got the Yellowwood money and everything else at Auburn, but it's a pretty easy school to sell if you visit here. It's a pretty nice place. But Auburn, they still got to go get a kid out of the portal at quarterback or they're done. Those coaches are going to year 3 next year, and they don't have a ready quarterback. That is a problem. Let's see. Eric Edwards, 2-10, and still came out with a hell of a class. Agree. He's got 5 fire emojis. I'll be honest. Nobody seems to be disappointed, which is a good sign. Expectations have been surpassed. I'm glad Florida State fans are putting this in context. To go through this much turmoil, again, 2-10 is just a disaster. There's no friendly there. But they made it through. They made it through. And there's still more hope. Now, because apparently Terrence Knighton is a part of the program. You can say that officially. They've got a chance to go out and get some defensive linemen in the portal, etc. They might actually resemble a football team next fall. There's no way you'd have convinced me of that 10, 15 hours ago. It's amazing how much change I've had with my opinion on Florida State in the course of less than one day. Really, really amazing. Let's see here. Psycho Seminole. Kevin Wynn is solid. Don't sleep on him. It's solid. Solid. He is a future NFL player. Psycho Seminole, that is a dude. I I don't know where you're from or how much you've seen of him. I just know that Kevin beats up on people on a very consistent basis. He's north of 320 pounds and he can run and he hustles too. Good football player. Robert Arena. Obviously, they're going to be portal for the O-line and quarterback, even though I think you could ride with Luke with Gus calling the plays. I don't know about quarterback. That's something I'll have to debate. I imagine I'll talk a little bit of portal tomorrow. We might do a little mix because, again, how this class shapes up impacts what you do in the portal. But you got a quarterback, and if you bring in a portal guy, does anybody leave? It's very convoluted. O-line, though, 100%. Let me be very clear on O-line. Minimum 3. That is not a good spot to be in. There's no telling how well that'll go, but it's the boat you have to try to get across the river in. This one just happens to be pretty leaky. As a rule, offensive line is the worst position in the transfer portal for like high-end guys. They either turn pro or they stay where they're at and grind it out. O-linemen, as a rule, are just different. I don't know why that is, but it's been that way a long time. Psycho Seminole. Chroma will be a playmaker, 100%. Chroma is from Lee County High School. He is a buddy, actually, of Cam Davis. They grew up together. They like one school over from each other. They're real close. And to be honest, Florida State couldn't have done better getting a player with his personality, his background, his work ethic, the style of runner he is, because he catches pretty well too. As a matter of fact, he's better than pretty good. He's a guy that catches the ball over his shoulder. Most running backs aren't going to do that very easily. He's been doing it for a long time. And he's a guy that doesn't care how he gets the ball. Toss sweep up the middle. He could run wildcat. You could put him in the slot. Doesn't care. Chroma is a very good football player. The Noles are certainly fortunate to have signed him. CW Junior 77. Impressed with getting these receivers without a receiver coach. That is actually something I didn't think about. I'd forgotten about that. That is wild. I mean, Gus came in, but he's a run guy. So your coordinator is not that he doesn't throw the ball, but like he's a run first guy. That's pretty impressive. Well said right there, C-Dub. That is a really good point. James Fountain, better than expected today. No doubt about it, James, 100%. Show enough DJ. I expect the new quarters to make a push in the offseason to land some guys we need. Offensive line, linebacker, D-line. Let's talk a little bit about linebacker. Just curious if anybody wants to comment on this. How many from the portal? 1 or 2? I mean, if you want to say more than that, you can, but I assume it'll be 1 or 2. And would you rather go get like the elite guy, or do you want guys, like for 1 year or something, it's going to be a senior transfer from wherever, Tennessee or Arkansas State, I don't know, wherever. Or would you rather get a couple of guys that have at least 2 years of eligibility? How would you spend your NIL? This is part of the equation now. So to show enough DJ's point, I agree, O-line's obvious. They definitely need at least 1 or 2 guys at linebacker. Defensive line's a position. They're probably going to lose a couple of guys, Patrick Payton, et cetera. May or may not come back. We'll see. But you have to plan for the worst. D-line, I think they're going to need a couple. Even if one of them is just primarily a backup, that's okay. You still got to get at least 1 minimum. Psycho Seminole. He loved Coach Yak. I'm not sure what that's referring to. Sam Gibson. They exceeded my expectations after 2-10. We need a new quarterback coach, receiver coach, and linebacker coach. Florida State needs a lot of things. Angelo Smith. What up, Angelo? Florida State will rack it up in free agency. I mean the portal. Well said. It's basically the same thing, isn't it? Kings Plain. Considering the size, number, and potential quality of the receivers we got, could Norvell be our new wide receiver coach? I bet a lot of people would be in favor of that. CW Junior 77. Gus will get linemen because of his style. Could be. They're going to run the ball. I can guarantee you that. Psycho Seminole. Fax Angelo. Haha. And Mike it's not your permanent record that you said from Norvell. I'm not sure what that's referencing. Let's see here. Oops, wrong one. Georgie, I'm one of the many who would agree that Norvell should have never been put in this situation, but he did more than just salvage the class. Still missing pieces, but could have been a lot worse. That is very true. Psycho Seminole. I expect James Williams to come with Coach Pot Roast. That's the deep, for those who don't know, that's the defensive end from Nebraska. He's sophomore, 6'6", 250. He fits the defense really well. If Florida State gets him a transfer, that would be a very big bonus. CW Junior 77. How many players we get from the black shirts? That's the question, man. I did a podcast about it. I would assume a couple. Any more than that, I think it would be a bonus, and you've certainly exceeded. It's hard to project transfers. You don't even know who all is going to leave, let alone sign. Psycho Seminole. He's a solid passer. Yes, he is. Monkey Nader 1234. Florida State was caught last year for cheating in recruiting. Well, that is based on one situation. So why are you bringing that up? CW Junior, best I felt all season. There's some truth in that. Well said, brother. Let's see. Does DJ help with recruiting? That's from Steve Shaw. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Hypnotic Anonymous. Wynn is a trench monster. Yes, he is. Again, I think he's a future NFL player. Psycho Seminole. Great day to be a Knoll. Georgie. Wynn's first clip of many is him just tossing guys to the ground. Yeah, he's super strong, man. Super strong. Sam Gibson. Do they exceed expectations in the transfer portal? That's a great question. They need to because of the many holes in the line of scrimmage. Cannot possibly understate what you did or overstate what you just said. Georgie, Norvell was a receiver in college. Yeah, that doesn't mean that he's going to be much more than a basic coach there now, though. Coaching receivers has really changed. A lot of personalities there. It's got to be one of the hardest spots to coach anymore. Jimmy, FSU. It was solid considering the circumstances, but we got to get better. Let's see. Hypnotic Anonymous. 1. Michael Ratliff, both. Were you talking about the linebackers? I more I think about it, I would take 2, even if one's just a journeyman. They do need one that can play right away, though, compete for a starting spot. 2 from CW Junior. Psycho Hypnotic. He used Keon as his wide receiver recruiter without a wide receiver coach. Well played. Georgie, you need at least 2. If they get 2 linebackers that are both good, they'd be in really good shape. We need at least 2 solid linebackers. That is from Shown Up DJ. Sam Gibson goes 3. If you go 3, one of them's got to be a dude, though. Still need somebody that can be an impact guy. Hypnotic. Nebraska's linebackers in the portal. If you got at least one of those guys, that'd be great because they can help implement the system. Florida State has too many guys, quite frankly, that aren't really ready for the situation that they're in right now because you're changing systems again. That's pretty rough. I say the linebacker from Nebraska and 1 to 2 years of eligibility. That would be nice. C-Dub, Randy Shannon type small backers should flourish in this scheme. I could see it, but they use some bigger backers too. We'll see. Peyton can hook it. I don't know. I think he means book it. I'm not sure what he means. That's from Jimmy. Excuse me. Sam Gibson, minimum 3 solid linebackers. Florida State doesn't have the numbers they need at linebacker. That's the biggest concern. If you have injuries, like I'm high on Nicholson, but guys get banged up, so you do need depth. Chroma said he loved coach and felt like home. I'm good with that. Robert Arena. Appreciate your perspective, brother. It was absolutely horrible to watch. If we get Portal right, maybe we give Alabama a run. You never know. Question of the night. Have you forgiven CMN? Have I? No, they were 2-10. Now, I'll never forget him for that. I think that's what you're referring to. What about the defensive guys leaving Nebraska? That is from Cochino. I don't know. I don't have any contact with the Nebraska program, but I'm sure they'll all have the option to go to Florida State if they're, like starters and whatnot. I'd rather be trash than a Democrat. That's what a name. They're not running the ball if the line is the same as it was this year. That's a fact. They need some health to go their way this next year, by the way. They can't have as many injuries. Stevie Knoll, what's DJ Ukulele do now? He's done. His career's over. Andres, give the circumstances A+ signing day. Just wait till Norvell hits the portal. Can you explain any word on Odell and his future? I'm actually curious about that. He was still recruiting, but they're bringing the D-line coach. So something's got to give. I really don't know what's going on there. Mr. Wash, what about the Desir twins? They're good players. They're not ready to be impact guys, but they got the frame, the athleticism that you're looking for. Wouldn't surprise me if they both played quite a bit as sophomores. Given the 3-3-5 defense, we'll need different body types at linebackers. Is Randy cut out for this job? I don't think so. You're right about the different body types, though. I doubt Randy is here much longer. Doc Norvell lasts long enough to develop this batch. That is from L Proof. Great question. They got to win next year. He's going to get canned. That's my opinion. We'll see if I'm right or wrong next fall. Sam Gibson. Sir, you do an amazing job. I appreciate the detail on your podcast. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Sam. CW. No more number 63 at tackle. Amen to that. Yeah. A few more parting shots here, and then I'll get out of here. Number one, tomorrow I'm going to do another recruiting podcast. I'll break it down a little more, get more specific, talk more film about who is and who is not likely to play early, why, maybe a little bit of information regarding like which schools went after kids like Mario Nash or whatever it may be. And then I'll get into some of the specifics in regarding to maybe some recruiting ranking stuff. And then I'll parlay that. Hopefully, if I can do it right, to have enough time, talk about how this class impacts the portal just as is. Now, if any more names pop, I might do a short podcast or something else too. But I think there's a good chance that Florida State will get at least one more guy. We'll see. Fashawn says, I feel like even with a bad season, they will keep Norvell till 2026. They might. He's still got a lot on his buyout next year too. That's not out of the question. Sam Gibson. Pat Pete, number 11, needs to go. Yeah, he wasn't great, to put it mildly. It is what it is, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. But Patrick Payton didn't have the year this year that he probably should have. I just subscribed. Thank you. For anybody out there, make sure you please do subscribe. I truly appreciate that. Hit that like button, hit that notification bell, and share this Locked On Seminoles podcast. I truly appreciate all of you for coming in. One last thing. Again, tomorrow we'll do a lot of recruiting stuff. Depending on how it goes, there could be quite a bit of recruiting stuff even on Friday. But again, next week, the portal opens. I'm going to start doing a lot of profiles. It's going to be pretty wild when stuff comes up. How often? Just make sure you check back to the channel, and it's a good reason to hit that notification bell so you get an idea when something goes up unexpectedly. You never know. There might be something that has happened while I'm doing this show. I wouldn't know. I've been sitting here talking to everybody on this podcast, but that's what makes this fun. Football recruiting, college football in general, there are a lot of different things that can happen at any one given time. So with that, thank you again to everybody. I truly appreciate it. I think that tomorrow's going to be as much fun, if not more. We're going to get to break down this stuff. I'm kind of looking forward to it already because I get to do what I really like, and that's talk about all the people from a perspective of film. I love breaking down film. So with that being said, everybody have a good night. I will talk to you soon. Take care.